Well, chilling here on a Wednesday afternoon. Life's not too bad, is it?
Life's not so bad.
Welcome back to the Barrett channel for a brand new video today with myself, Ollie, and
I am Ben. Hello, everybody.
been on the channel before, ain't you, mate?
Second time on the channel. Absolutely.
Go and check that video out if you haven't seen it already. But you've pretty much just come to China, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm a month in now. A month in Shenzhen. 3 weeks previous to that in Shanghai, so beginning of February now.
And we're going to do a video because there's a lot of misconceptions about how, to get to China. It's very difficult at the moment, as you may have already been aware. But we're just going to go into a little bit of detail, as you've actually experienced it all, as to what you actually have to go through now to get back to China, particularly as a foreigner. It's very different for Chinese natives, as of course they can come back to their own country. I'm sure they have to do the quarantine and everything like that. But maybe we can start with so what was your reason, first of all, for actually wanting to come here?
Come to China. Yeah, well, obviously I was lucky in the situation that I wanted a new experience. I wanted to go and work abroad for a year before I do my master's. And I've known you for years now. And I think when you left the UK, we had kind of a similar experience. I went to live in Amsterdam for a year and you came here. And since you've been here, you've always kind of talked about the benefits. I know at one point you had first came here and you kind of said there's an opportunity for this. And so as soon as the opportunity presented itself, that I have a year to do something different before I do my master's and focus on something specific. So I just thought it'd be a great idea to be able to come here. And yeah, just have a different lifestyle for a year.
Yeah, it's definitely a year to be able to grow and learn a lot about yourself and about other cultures, for sure. At that time, it was already COVID here, right?
Yeah.
When you wanted to come?
Yeah, it was in a weird situation because we still had COVID. We were coming out of COVID in the Western world, they were starting to ease restrictions, but in China, I believe at the time you'd had maybe a year or something with pretty much no cases, so there was a bit of difficulty.
So it ended up being a lot more effort, money, time and hassle to get here than you first imagined.
Yeah.
You were aware that you'd have to quarantine.
Absolutely.
But when you first came here and you told me all the stuff that you went through to get here, I was kind of mind blown, to be honest. So make sure you stick around to hear it all, because if you're planning to get here during COVID time, you're going to have to go through a similar process. So first of all, it ended up being a lot more costly, right, than you first imagined to get here. So I was pretty blown away when you told me how much it actually cost you to get here. So how much was it overall?
So it's about £5,000 in total.
All included?
All in.
That's pretty mad, because in regular times, a flight from the UK might cost about £500, probably a little bit less.
Yeah.
So it's 10 times more to get here. So we'll try and not jump around too much and go from the very beginning to when you got here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of processes in place to minimize the risk of bringing COVID into the country, right?
Yeah.
And so first of all, even before you had to fly, what kind of precautions were you told that you had to take?
So about 2 weeks before my flight, I was advised to stay at home, so not go to work, not go out and socialise or put yourself in a position you might get COVID. And then a week before my flight, I had to get my first PCR test. So you have to go to an approved clinic, of which there's about 15 in the UK, to get your first COVID test. When that comes back negative, you can go on to the next stage, which is 2 days before your flight. You're required to get another PCR test and an antibody, which is like a blood test, which shows if you've ever had it. So for those tests and the test a week before, is about £350 for those. And then obviously, like you would a normal flight, you get to the airport, you have to show all your negative tests and stuff like that, and then they give you a stamp to show that you can get on the flight. And then once you arrive in Helsinki, you have a 24-hour layover, in which time you have to queue to get the same COVID tests again, so the PCR and the blood test. in the night, and then the morning after you receive the results, and you can finally board the flight in the afternoon to get to Shanghai. And those tests again are £250.
Okay, this is like 2 o'clock in the morning, just about ready for bed now. Managed to find a nice little spot, nice little booth. It's not bad, it's a little bit bright, but I'm just in an airport, so what can you do really? There's lots of people in the same situation, just sleeping wherever they can really. But yeah, I'll try and get some sleep and back in the morning for a big day.
You got a layover flight to China, right? Because there was no direct flights from the UK to China at that time. And you were telling me about there were only a certain few flights you were able to take because of a specific reason. So do you want to just go into that a bit?
Yeah, so technically you aren't allowed to have a layover flight into China. However, if there's no direct flights from your home country, you obviously have to take a layover flight. So yeah, there was only a handful of countries in Europe that I could fly into, and they had to have a testing site inside the airport where you get tested, can receive the certificate to then fly, because you're not allowed outside of the airport to test.
Right, so that limits you to a specific few flights that you're able to take.
Yeah.
Because let's say you wanted to fly to Amsterdam and have a layover, but they didn't have a testing facility in the airport, that was out of the question.
Yeah.
So you've boarded the flight from Helsinki to China at this point. Everything's come back negative. Let's say something came back positive, what would happen?
You're not allowed to board the flight, and you have to wait 6 months before you can try and get in again.
Right, so if you've had COVID within 6 months, there's no way of coming to China, basically.
No, and you have to get a CT scan to get here.
So you're on the plane, you get to China. What happens when you land in the airport in China?
When you first get into China, you have to immediately go and take a COVID test. So you queue up in that. I think it was about 3 hours I was in the airport.
Okay.
You go and get the COVID test, and then you do the usual visa requirements, why you're in the country, etc. And then you get to the end of the airport, and you are organised based on where you're going to be going for the quarantine hotel. So I was quite late out of the flight, so I was one of the last people there. So I got the last bus with a handful of people, and we were then taken away to the quarantine hotel, but with no kind of option of where we go or what price point. You're just allocated.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'd heard some people previously were given options. They can have from like 3 tiers, but you didn't get that.
For the first quarantine hotel, no, there's no choice. For the second one, I was given 2 price points.
Oh, okay.
A cheap and a mid-range.
So in total, you had to do 3 weeks, right?
3 weeks, yeah.
And that was split between 2 different hotels.
Yeah. So the way they do it is the first 2 weeks is mandatory hotel quarantine. That's what everybody coming into the country has to do. However, if you are living in Shanghai, you can complete the 3rd week at home.
Oh.
So if you don't have a place to live in Shanghai, you go to another hotel. If you're living in Shanghai, you go to your residential address. And I think you have Bluetooth tracker on your phone and sensor on the door.
Oh, really?
So if the door opens, you have to kind of explain why that happened.
Oh, okay.
To stop people from going home.
And when you were in the hotel, what was it like?
Yeah, I mean, it was challenging.
Yeah.
Obviously coming into a new country that I'd never been to before.
Right.
Spending your first 3 weeks in a hotel, it's a bit different, understanding the culture based on the food I was given, and short telephone calls with the front desk in what Chinese I could muster. But we had 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch and dinner.
So we've just had a knock at the door, that means lunch is ready. Let's see what we've got.
A COVID test every 3 days.
Every 3 days? Oh, that's surprising. I would have thought they would do it like every day, but
every 3 days pretty much.
I've been so fortunate through the whole time during COVID. I've never had to do like a 3-week quarantine or a 2-week quarantine. The longest forced quarantine I've ever had was the one we literally just had in Shenzhen, which was like 4 days.
Oh, really?
Or 5 days. So I've been quite fortunate in that respect. What did you find it like? Because it's one thing to do it, but then to do it straight as you've landed in a new country and never having seen anything besides like the view out of your window.
Yeah.
It must be really weird.
Yeah, I mean, it is weird. Like, there's obviously a part of me that you kind of land and you're in the hotel and you're obviously just on your own, independent with your thoughts. So it's challenging not to kind of think negatively about the situation, but I think I managed to stay positive about it and look at it more with excitement. Like at the end of the day, I was in Shanghai, and at the end of the quarantine, I had a weekend in Shanghai, which was really nice. And then I could fly down to Shenzhen. So there's more excitement about being in the country that kind of overpowered the negative feelings of it. Because obviously, I was in a situation where, in an ideal world, I'd love to land at the airport and just completely become immersed in the whole experience.
Right.
But unfortunately, that's not the case. So,
well, you must have, you must have wanted to come here a lot to go through all of that to eventually get here. I hope it's going to live up to the expectations, or make it
worthwhile.
Make it a worthwhile experience, to have been quarantined and go through all of that.
It's just one of those situations where, like, obviously it's taken a great deal to get here, and there is challenges involved in that. But me as a person, even if it turns out bad being here, I think it's much better to have tried it and taken the risk than be in a situation where you always take the safe route and you never know.
100%, yeah.
So I think that's the way I see it, and no matter what happens, I don't think it can be anything less than an experience here.
100%.
Even if I don't think it will be a negative experience, but even if there's negative parts of it, it's still an experience and it's still shaping me as a person. Exactly.
For sure. And then, what ended up happening after you came to Shenzhen, it was literally since COVID started, it was the worst outbreak in Shenzhen. Actually, possibly ever. I think even when it first started, it never got as bad as it was last week in Shenzhen. So we ended up going through a lockdown, which many of you probably already know. Luckily, our area was only for like 5 days, but the downtown area was literally, they've just gotten out today and they've been in lockdown for like almost 5 weeks. Yeah. So that's kind of sucked, but hopefully now that we're out, it continues to improve and we're not getting locked down again, hopefully.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, don't want to get this video going on for too long. I can see it's already saying 17 minutes on the camera, so just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an insight into what you have to go through to get here. And sometimes we do come across situations where we are singled out for being foreigners in China, and many people think we may have COVID because we're foreigners. And sometimes that can be pretty frustrating because obviously when you've gone through all of that, the chance that you've brought COVID into the country is literally, you could say it's next to zero. Obviously there's a possibility you could have, but it's very, very close to zero with all the things that China have in place to mitigate that risk. So, it is what it is at the end of the day. But yeah, hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight. Thanks for explaining all of that. And leave a like and comment and let us know what you think. Did you realise it was that difficult to be able to get here? And have you had a similar experience, or the country that you live in, what's it like there? Anyway, we will see you in the next one. For now, take care.
Take care.
These chairs are weird. They make it, I don't really know how to sit in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I put my hands like that, and then I was like, it's weird. Maybe a bit too wide like that.
Chicken arms, isn't it?
Well, so do you want me to look at the camera?
It doesn't matter.
When I speak,
doesn't
I can
matter
do anything.
either.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So even before you,